Danny Peachy on the vlog, how do you feel?
Cold.
Cold?
Cold and in need of coffee.
Cold. Is it cold in here? Is it?
Yes.
Is it a cold apartment, or are you being a bit of a pussy?
Can we just check the thermometer?
Put your thoughts in the comment section below. We are eating. I'm doing what I only do on a Thursday, and that is I'm breaking my fast before we go and train with a special conditioning session that we have coming up. However, Athletic Greens, little eye into my supplement cupboard. It used to be a lot neater than this. I know, Danny's camera person, Danny is shaking her head. I've let myself go. Athletic Greens, absolute non-negotiable. Have this in some cold water, and then my very, very, very flipping middle class breakfast, which I shall share with you in a minute. Oh God, what a climax. That was far more erotic than it usually is on a day-to-day basis. I'm lying. It's always that erotic with Athletic Greens. If there are any other Athletic Green connoisseurs, you will know they are amazing at making greens products and terrible at making flipping bottles, because I end up with this on my nose, on my forehead, sometimes on the back of my head, which defies physics. Don't really know how that goes. This is not the cheapest supplement as far as like greens shakes go, or as far as any flipping supplement goes. This costs 80 quid a month, but this, within a month, probably less than a month of taking it, it became literally my #1 kind of non-negotiable. So obviously it's a green shake, it's a multivitamin, it's a probiotic, it's a prebiotic. I think it's got like 52 different kind of greens ingredients and vitamins in there. Like it's flipping unreal. And it's very rare that I have something where I just feel kind of nourished from it. And day to day, I feel better. And definitely if I go away and I could only take, as an example, because I'm traveling quite a lot at the moment, much to Danny's dismay, if I could only take one product with me, it'd be this. So this is how I break my fast pretty much every day. I'm not as posh as this is gonna make you think I am, but basically I always try and vary my dinners to basically make sure that I can kind of diversify my microbiome. However, my breakfast, the way is like a flipping sacred time for me, because I intermittent fast. Again, it's only 11:30 now, but it's normally around 12:30, 1 p.m. Then I'm having my first meal. It's always invariably kind of the same way that I break my fast, which is one venison grill steak. Someone's doing all right, aren't they? Basically, that's mixed into an omelette. So I have this, a little bit of green veg, and then I have a couple of eggs, but in my opinion, it is not exactly, it's not a proper omelette unless, basically there's a minimum quota of eggs that you have to have. And every single time I go to a flipping restaurant, I get absolutely annihilated by the fact that I'm always like, how many eggs are in this breakfast or this omelette? And they're like 2. And then I go, can I have 6? Because I'm disgusting. And sometimes they laugh, sometimes they look at me as though I'm like a demon-infested pig. So I will leave that to your individual judgment. But venison grill steak, a little bit of green veg, and 6 huevos, 6 eggs. That's the way it's got to be done. You zooming in on my slab of meat. This is true functional fitness. I don't give a shit how much you can clean if you can't do this. Yes, look at that chili smash on it as well. People of YouTube, I have a question for you. When you break an egg and you do this, do you then use your finger to like scoop out the rest? Camera person Danny's looking at me like I'm an absolute alien here. For me, I don't know, it just feels like you're just wasting egg white if you don't do that. Look at that, you wouldn't have had that. You are not as strong as you could be if you had less reluctance to finger your eggs. Full of wisdom this episode, enjoy. Didn't want to bite my lip. Very erotic lip. Got me omelette. Haven't got an avocado though. which is annoying because it does add flavour and a little bit of a contrast in texture. I've got my omelette with my venison burger, a little bit of vegan cheese, a little bit of kale in there. Not too shabby, a little bit smaller than I would normally like, but considering I haven't trained yet and I'm about to do a conditioning session, probably not a bad thing that I'm only having a little meal. Omelette done. I'm now chill out for 5-10 minutes, let this go down, finish my coffee, pack my gym bag, and when we shall be heading over to Route 1 in Crawley, it's about 15-18 minute drive, for a saucy little conditioning session. But to ensure that I'm appropriately fueled for that, Arabica is life. Last little finishing touches before we go. Here we have Flogs Fungi Limited. So this is basically like organic cordyceps. So cordyceps is it's a particular like blend. It's a particular like strand of mushroom, and a couple of like loads and loads of companies are jumping on this. It's quite topical in the fitness industry at the moment. But one of the things that it's supposed to help with is like oxygenation of tissues. And overall, I mean, different mushrooms do different things. Reishi, as an example, is really good for sleep. Lion's mane is really good for kind of like general energy, but cordyceps is good for endurance. But it tastes like shit. So what I'm gonna do is I put a little bit of water in my mouth, a couple of droplets from that, leave it in for like 20-30 seconds, absorb it through the gums as much as you can, and then go from there. So, I mean, it's not really bad, but it's really bad, you know? Swallow like a good girl. And there we go, it's cordyceps in. Let's get to the gym. We are en route in our Nissan Leaf because we care about the planet, innit? So as standard, we'll get there, a little bit of mobility stuff. The way that I'm warming up has now changed pretty drastically, which we'll walk you through in a minute. But instead of just doing like a general kind of warming phase of kind of 3 to 5 minutes and then some dynamic drills, in addition to the dynamic stuff, which is very much based around kind of a little bit more activation and innovation at the top end. So like dynamic lunges, super kind of springy at the top, high knees, only making contact at very limited range. My body's definitely starting to, I feel kind of innovated and powerful at the top end, but I do want to develop some strength and stability at range as well. So my mobility stuff and my kind of like movement prep as such is going to look a bit different, which we'll walk you through in a minute. But we're about 2 to 3 minutes out. Got 6 eggs in my system. Got 2 coffees in my system. I'm ready to go. And tissues are nice and warm. Always do a little bit of foam rolling. It really doesn't take that long, and it's quite intuitive as to where I do it. So I have the same kind of process of doing IT band and TFL, which is the muscle that's kind of above the IT band, basically on the outside of the hips. Kind of a little roll there, trying to put as much weight through it as possible, depending on pain levels and stuff. So do that, then kind of the quads, then the VMOs and kind of the adductors on the inside, and then change legs. So it only takes about 2-3 minutes to do this, but fairly intuitive with, if a part's feeling okay, kind of tune into my body kinesthetically, proprioceptively, it feels a bit better. And the longer that you've been training, you should be able to do this as well. Then I still do that area, but I kind of go through it a little bit quicker, and it's easier to kind of get the tick in the box that that's done. But if there's an area that's feeling a little bit tighter, as an example, now that I kind of transition onto kind of the main part of the quad, if there's something that's feeling a little bit worse, a little bit tighter, then I'll just kind of stay on that area, and tiny little like pulsating movements in like 1 or 2 inches. Kind of keep going over there, but just try and stay as relaxed as possible, which is obviously can be a bit of a nightmare and can be challenging when it's quite painful and feels quite uncomfortable. But it is kind of key that you attempt to kind of breathe through it and stay relaxed, because you don't want everything tensing up. So you have to kind of like actively relax, which is a bit of a kind of a contradiction, but it does help. So a couple of minutes of this, and then I'll get into some hip and spine mobility that I've got from Ben Simons, and then it'll be all ready to go. So warm up still total with the warming section and with some kind of mobility stuff which has changed a little bit, and then with kind of the innovation, the priming stuff, all of it together probably still takes less than 10 minutes. So I've got kind of the core kind of skeleton plan of everything that I do, and then it just changes slightly, and it didn't change slightly, I should say. I just focus a little bit more on the individual areas within, like kind of on that warm-up to-do list that might need it. So as an example, at the moment, my VMO here, as I'm moving onto the inside, that's feeling a little bit tighter at the moment. So I just spend a little bit more time on there than I would do normally. So the checklist stays the same, but I allow myself to spend a little bit more time on a particular area if I need to. That's what I'm doing today. Foot mobility is something that I have to do, having arches that are flatter than a pancake. And I'm still training in normal trainers. So I've got like my Nike Zooms today to do some running stuff in. Still got my Metcons, I don't really use them as much anymore, but I've transitioned into some Vivo Barefoots as kind of, not more of a low-key, just kind of walking around daily shoe that I'm basically kind of attempting to transition more and more into wearing them more and more full-time. But I don't want to kind of go straight into training in them, especially anything that's kind of high impact. So I'm doing some mobility stuff in them, etc. But it does kind of allow a lot more mobility around kind of the toes and the forefoot. But because of that, generally, when I'm running now, I want to make sure that kind of my feet and especially under my arches are nice and mobile. So just using a lacrosse ball now, but flipping heck, if you haven't done it for a while, it does hurt. Definitely does hurt. Definitely repping the Gain the Edge socks as well. You're welcome. So these things, I've got these little kind of like rubber pads on the bottom, which basically means that when your sock is in the shoe, it's not moving around inside. So even if you were getting a little bit of kind of like a slide around from your foot, you're not getting that now, which just means that you do feel stable, especially when kind of you're going around corners. Everything just feels a little bit more kind of locked in. And if you're doing any kind of quick agility stuff, that helps. And even if it was only moving around, even if your current socks are already kind of moving around inside the shoe a little bit, it's still like force dumping. You're still losing, you're still generating force, like from the ground up that is then being lost. So the fact that you got these, I've worn these a couple of times, even on some linear stuff, it does help, but definitely anything if you were kind of doing, I think they're initially made for football, but for soccer, for the overseas subscribers amongst you. But I definitely recommend them even for like things like trail running, any kind of track work, anything where you want to make sure that you kind of get that 1% gain of you are generating this force, but you do not want to be dumping it. Force dumping is such a huge thing in regards to the mechanics generally. You don't want to add to that with crap items. Yeah, I've started working with these guys recently. Generally massive fan of what they do. I think for all running stuff from now on, I'll be wearing more and more of these. They don't do any 5-toe like finger sock versions. Camera person Danny is disgusted by the idea of that. But Gain the Edge. Let's go, George. Come on, that's next on your list, bro. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago in the car, I'm doing some kind of mobility stuff now as part of the warm-up. Still having to raise my heels because my dorsiflexion is terrible. But I'm doing a lot more mobility stuff, taking tension, not only just staying, kind of stretching and staying passive here, but one of the things I'm liking doing in my warm-ups now is kind of getting at kind of really kind of deep range, acute angles at the knee and at the hips. And then from there, again, the dumbbells to aid to kind of add a little bit of resistance and kind of force that stretch a little bit more, but also it kind of counterbalances. So if I lost this, I can hold this position, but it's actually a little bit more awkward than actually having the weight, which kind of helps and pulls me into the right position because it allows me to lean back. But from here, take a little bit of tension, even up by 1 millimeter, and that just means that you're getting a bit of an isometric contraction. So you're still working as opposed to kind of just staying completely loose, which is good for mobility. But obviously this is like pre-workout mobility, so this is a little bit different. I don't want everything to kind of stay completely switched off. So even at the same, lift it up by 1 millimeter, but it means that everything is still kind of contracting, pushing knees forward over the toes as much as I can. Neutralize, so just a few seconds at a time. And I just find that really helps with kind of making sure that we build that kind of, those motor patterns and that control, but also stretching out the tissues, but making sure the tissues do still contract at that full range. So that's a really good kind of helpful thing that I've been doing recently. And another one, I'll just do it here for you. These things I definitely like doing in socks, as opposed to kind of in shoes. Just get a little bit more kind of ground contact and feeling there. And from there, just a little bit of a deeper kind of split squat, attempting to keep that back leg as straight as possible, really pushing that front knee over, a little bit of weight on the back, and it helps. Brief pause and then up, and then again down, exactly the same. So it's not a lunge, I'm not bending this back leg, trying to keep that straight as I can. Really forward, really acute angle there,
and then up 3 or 4 of these. Brief pause at the bottom. With that pause again, I'm not completely passive with it. I've still got tension stretching out the back hip flexor. A few of those each side, and you really just feel, see kind of everything's contracting and activating in a slightly different way. And it just flipping bulletproofs you, man. If I'm going for a run in a minute where I'm only making contact with the ground, the last few degrees and literally locking out, bringing the knee up against the air, only locking out there, it's great to get kind of the tissues contracting and being stretched at a significantly more kind of acute angle, which is what I'm doing with these ones. Stretching out the hip flexor, really kind of contracting on these tissues, getting the ground contact with the fact that it's in socks, not in overly kind of cushioned cast-like shoes, which really, really, really helps. And depending on how much tension that you've got, sometimes it's actually better to do this with a little bit more weight, I think. If you're naturally quite fast twitch, naturally quite elastic, and you're naturally quite strong, I'm fast twitch, I'm elastic, I'm not sure how strong I am right now, but what can happen is your tissues get so flipping tight that you can do a little bit of kind of active stretching, but having some extra resistance in the form of a dumbbell, a couple of dumbbells, light barbell on your back. It basically just pushes you down because your tissues and your tendons and ligaments, musculature, if you've got a bit of scar tissue in there as well, you're so flipping inflexible sometimes. And in terms of like a static range of motion, passive range of motion, as to say, the bit of weight can be good to actually force you down. So it can be a benefit. It's not just adding resistance, it's not a strength exercise. Sometimes you need weight, exactly the same as that super low goblet squat that I did a second ago. Extra dumbbell kind of helps just like squeeze you down into the right position. That's why I do it. That's kind of the static stuff now, a bit of rotational stuff, some innovation work on the turf, and then it'll be all ready to go. And again, all of that can be done in less than 10 minutes. So, the session is this. What we are going to be doing, full body, a little bit of a conditioning focus, but with a bit of strength in there. And I think this is a nice kind of fairly low skill way to kind of combine all of these elements. So I want a little bit of push, a little bit of lower, a little bit of pull, and a run. So I've got incline bench for 20, so I'm going to keep that super light. I'm starting on 60, that may well go down, because the stability that, if you are someone who only normally benches in a functional bodybuilding workout, strength workout, whatever, you won't be used to doing it out of breath. And when your diaphragm's pulling, it's very, very different. So 20 reps, 15 reps each side for front foot elevated Bulgarian split squat. So back foot raised as standard, kind of laces down on a bench or a box. But then I'm gonna lift the front foot up slightly, probably by just stepping on like a 20 kilo plate. And this is very likely gonna be body weight, 15 each side. So again, the purpose of the front foot elevated is normally on a Bulgarian split squat, same as a lunge. You can only go down so far because the back knee touches the ground, even on a Bulgarian, not just on lunges. So you lift that front foot up, that raises kind of globally raises everything up, which means you get a little bit more range when you go all the way down. So 15 on each, and then L hang pull-ups, obviously core levers and a little bit of core. So you've got kind of pull and core in the same exercise there, and then a run, 400 meters, and 10 rounds of that. Yeah. Camerawoman Danny was like, eyebrows just went up slightly then, realizing how much flipping volume this is, realizing how long she's going to be stuck here with me filming, basically. So do the run, then let the legs rest a little bit while I do the push, then legs worked again, then pull, and during the L hang pull-ups, that my legs can kind of still get a little bit of oxygen in, ready for the next run. So 10 rounds. So a lot of it's going to be interesting to see how kind of my running form goes under fatigue. But there are some big changes with myself and the way that my own training's going, which I'll be communicating to you more over the next couple of weeks. But running is something I want to kind of focus on a little bit more, because I think regardless of the stuff that you can do in a gym environment, running both mechanics and speed and endurance and everything, and recovery for that is so much more truly organically functional than being able to do, you know, a dual dumbbell fucking cartwheel split snatch. or whatever the hell that is. So I just think being able to run kind of freely and move in that capacity is super important. So this is the workout for 10. I'm going to probably use the first 2 rounds just as a little bit of kind of like kind of a re-warmer, because I'm stuck here talking to you for a couple of minutes, and we shall see how we get on. Everything's been dropped. 15 kilos, 50 instead of 60, just 10 each side. And instead of 10 L hang, I'm gonna do 8 normal. Because my main objective with this is to kind of make sure it's supposed to be primarily a run workout. And if I start to do this, I could do it and I could grind through it, but it would detract from the form and from the amount of time that I get between kind of 400 meter reps, which kind of defeats the point. So got to be willing, got to be flexible enough to test and adjust, even in the midst of it. When you're fit and you do a conditioning session, it feels a certain way. But for those of you that have ever come back from an injury, had a bit of time off, gone on holiday or vacation for a bit, you'll know, man, it's completely different. It's the first kind of running bit you've done, everything just feels weak, feels heavy. It's like a different cut where you feel not fit. You don't feel as though you're fit in a good session or you're working hard. It's a more humbling, kind of clunky kind of feeling. And I was just telling camera human Danny a minute ago, obviously not in great detail because it's in the middle of a workout, but I was saying I haven't really done that any like proper cardio kind of since I went to Mike's Gym Marbella. And that was over a month ago now. Just kind of did stuff on the run up to that, had the course and the body was a bit sore, got into a little bit of functional bodybuilding, did a couple of weeks of kind of Marcus Phillies style stuff, some stability, lots of slow tempo work, and that's what I've been doing. So in theory I'm more stable now, but cardiovascularly it's a different ball game. It was fun though, it was fun. I'm gonna have a quick sip of water and then we'll have a more detailed debrief. Well, that was significantly shitter than I was expecting. It's just stability, the eccentric load when you land on the ground. If you're not, I think running isn't just, it's like, I think other forms of cardio or general cardiovascular fitness can kind of be transferred from one like piece of erg kit to the next. But running, in addition to being slightly more technical, you've got foot placement to worry about, you've got the eccentric load, you've got kind of Achilles and calf strength and elasticity, because it's basically a sequence of really kind of small jumps, so you've got to kind of be used to that. That was good though. That was good. It was nice to kind of definitely blow off some flipping cobwebs on the cardiovascular side, and even kind of core stability. I felt my abs a bit aching a bit, which is really interesting. The only other time I've felt my abs kind of almost get to a stage of being slightly overworked, or at least I'm kind of proprioceptively, kinesthetically aware of them, is when I did a workout that involved some GHD sit-ups and some running. So maybe it's a little bit of kind of pre-fatigue on some of the exercises, and then just the landing. Maybe it's just the load and kind of the combination of the two. But again, you kind of become conditioned to that. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some big things changing in my own training, which is very much kind of a little bit of it's a big thing, it's a little bit of a brand change for me actually, so I'm excited to share that with you guys over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I enjoyed today. Nice to dust off some cobwebs, nice to see that you can do push, pull, legs, core and cardio all in the same session, and my time for that was 36:58. So I wanted, well actually I kind of wanted sub 45, so I'm really bloody happy with that, but I did bitch out on the reps a little bit. So instead of doing 60 kilos for 20 on the bench, I did 50 kilos for 20 for the first 5 sets, and then the last 5 sets I did 15. I went down from 15 each side to 10 on the split squats, and there was no way I was doing 10 L hangs on the pull-ups. That went down to 8 very, very, very quickly. And the pull-ups, when you're gassed, there's something about your flipping diaphragm pulling, kind of changing shape of your torso and your trunk. They just absolutely ball bagged you. So yeah, it was good fun. It's good to know that we can kind of tick every single box in one session. 10 minutes warm up, general warming phase, bit of kind of hip and spine mobility and foam rolling, and then some innovation work, and then a good quality session. You can do all of that in less than kind of 50 minutes really. Job done. Stay tuned for all these changes, guys. Big favour you can do me, smash that like button as aggressively if you can, if you did enjoy today's content. If you have not yet done so, please do subscribe. Got lots of amazing stuff coming up, whether you're a crossfitter, bodybuilder, power builder, chasing a bit of hypertrophic objective, prepping for the military, looking for some explosive power work, biohacking, nutrition, we've got it all. As always, guys, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome. Let's see you soon.